Yeah, welcome everybody. So welcome Dr. Donald Martin Evronia, and welcome for the really important topic, today's topic. We have been running this webinar series by Dr. Donald Martin, and we already have the 3 sessions earlier. This is very important for undergraduate study in United States, where we will be talking. In India, we call this as a bachelor's after 12th standard, but ultimately your preparation starts at 9th standard. Because when you want to prepare for your undergraduate study, it is not only a percentage of marks or grades, but it takes a lot of holistic evaluation process by the universities in the United States. And Dr. Donald Martin, who was many years into the system, he was the admissions dean at Columbia University, Booth School of Business, Northwestern, and many universities, and have been counseling for years together. So let's hear, sorry, I'm a slightly sore throat today. So let's start with today's session. This is, again, we will be continuously reviewing the session. So actually you can see in the screen also. So he was such a vast experience, guided more than 125,000 students. And that is a big number. He himself evaluated those applications, made the decisions on that applications. He knows in and out of what is the criteria of admissions. And that is why such a vast expertise person is there. He has written a great book also, even though it was a graduate study, but even for undergraduate, most of the things are the same. So if anybody wants a book, free copy will be shipped to you. You can just send us your postal details, and we will courier the hard copy of the book free of cost to all the students. Thank you very much. So I request Dr. Donald Martin to take over.
Thank you so much, Dr. 𝐂𝐤𝐝. Hello, everyone. Welcome. If you are joining us for the second time, we did our first webinar just about a month ago for the undergraduate program in the United States. This is our second one. And if you're joining us again, it's great to have you back. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. It's a privilege for me to work with Dr. 𝐂𝐤𝐝 and his team at the 𝐂𝐡𝐞𝐜 Academy. Dr. 𝐂𝐂𝐝 never asks me to say this, I promise you, but I want you to know that in the 𝐂𝐡𝐞𝐜 Academy, you have a phenomenal resource to help you both as you pursue undergraduate study and maybe someday, should you decide to pursue graduate study. I've had the privilege of working with Dr. 𝐂𝐂𝐝 for almost 10 years now. It's been a wonderful collaboration. We've had an opportunity to work together to help many students pursuing graduate study. And now I'm so honored to be asked to help individuals who are preparing for undergraduate study, because part of my work as a dean of admissions did include serving as admissions director for an undergraduate institution for 6 years. So I have a lot of experience in that way as well. And you can see here on this screen some of the other areas where I have been working and what I've been doing in my career. I love what I do, by the way. I absolutely love it. I've been so fortunate to have this opportunity. Now, before we move on, I want to introduce my colleague, Ms. Deborah 𝐂𝐻𝐤, who is joining us today. Deborah worked with me several years ago for a while and then took some time off and has now graciously agreed to come back and join our team here in the States, working primarily this coming year with me as we work with undergraduate students. In fact, Deborah helped to prepare some of the slides we're about to see today. And next month, starting next month, she will actually be helping me to do some presenting of the webinars that we will be offering to you. So Deborah, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining.
Hello, Dr. Don. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome. And really, the 𝐂𝐡𝐞 family also welcomes you.
Thank you so much, Dr. 𝐂𝐤𝐝.
Wonderful. Okay, now let's move along. What are we going to talk about today? Well, first of all, Deborah and I would like to share with you some facts that both of us researched in preparation for this presentation some things about undergraduate education in the United States that we thought you would be interested in knowing about. Secondly, as you may come to discover, should you join us for these webinars going forward, one of the things I often talk about, because I believe it's so important, is the biggest mistake prospective undergraduate and graduate students make. It's often the same thing. And I'm going to briefly touch on that as I did last time. For those of you who joined us last month, I hope you remember what the answer is. Then I'm going to talk about some ways in which applying as an international student, if you're coming to the United States to study, is similar, and other ways where applying as an international student is different than what US students would be experiencing. Then I want to talk about some common mistakes applicants make. This is not on purpose. They don't do this intentionally by any means, but yet they can make these mistakes, and it can be extremely disconcerting, and it can make a difference in the outcome of their application. I'm going to say a few words in closing, then mention a brief word about what Ms. Deborah and I will be doing together this year as we collaborate with Astute, and then we're going to open this up for some questions. I love questions. That's my favorite part of any webinar that I do. You'll notice on the panel here for your signing in for this presentation, there's a Q&A box. And as I go through the presentation, please, please, please ask any questions you would like to, and we will try to answer as many as we possibly can. There are no bad questions. There are no dumb questions. If you want to ask, I want to try and answer, okay? So with that in mind, let's discuss just a few initial facts about the undergraduate program in the United States. Just to give you some context, about 30 years ago, only half high school seniors applied to colleges in the US. Half of our high school US seniors did. Today, close to 2/3 are doing so. In other words, the number of applications to college in the United States has definitely increased, both from US citizens, but also now from international students. So the numbers are higher, as you probably heard. To give you an example, at one of the schools you might recognize, the University of Pennsylvania, which is considered one of the Ivy League schools. It's a very top program. Just to give you some idea what Deborah and I were able to find out, in 1990, the acceptance percentage at Penn was 41%. In 2017, it had dropped to 10%. And for this fall, for students who applied to attend University of Pennsylvania this fall, their acceptance rate was 8.4%. What this shows, again, is that applications are going up. In most cases, I would suggest to you that while applications are going up, the number of seats in the incoming class is not going up in the same percentage, if at all. So in other words, if the University of Pennsylvania accepts 7,000 undergraduate students and their applicant pool keeps going up and up and up, that doesn't mean that they're going to start increasing the number of incoming students beyond that 7,000, which is why their acceptance percentage goes down. So this is something, again, to keep in mind as I talk about some of the mistakes you can make. Keep in mind that applications are going up, and where they tend to go up the most, this would make sense, is at the institutions that are considered the best or the most competitive to get into. Another fact, as you might remember, during the Trump administration, the years when Donald Trump was president of the United States, there was a huge loss in applications due to situations that were being exposed and espoused about perceived immigration issues. Now, thankfully, according to the New York Times and other sources, this trend is once again beginning to gradually go back to what it was to the pre-Trump era, which we're so thankful for. and I don't need to tell you this, but I will. We welcome, I can speak on behalf of my country, we welcome international students in the United States of America. We had a little bit of a blip there, but that did not undermine our commitment to having international students study in college or in graduate school in this country. Another statistic I thought would be interesting, you may have heard that standardized test scores are becoming a little bit less of a requirement. And some institutions are now waiving them altogether. As of October 2021, 1,785, there are about 3,000 to 4,000 accredited undergraduate institutions in the United States. So close to 50% of them, well, 45%, let's say, are now having tests be optional. Many applicants have relied in the past on a combination of their grades and their test scores as one of the ways to be most noticed by an admissions committee. This is changing in the United States. It is not, test scores are still required by many institutions, obviously, still over half. But the number that is not requiring them is growing. It is my personal opinion. I haven't read this anywhere. Please don't quote me as some enormous authority on this particular point, but my own personal opinion is that within the next 5 to 10 years, most educational institutions in the United States will no longer be requiring standardized test scores. So this is a growing trend. And lastly, along with this trend of institutions not requiring SAT or ACT scores as they used to, there is ongoing discussion in the United States about the validity of using these scores as part of the application process. It is a known fact that certain individuals just test better than others on these standardized tests. I've had family members whose GPAs, their grades were straight A's. They were outstanding students. Perhaps some of you listening to me today have found this to be the case. You're getting straight A's. You're doing beautifully in your high school experience. But when you take a practice SAT or ACT, your score isn't very good, no matter what you do. And this is the complaint that many have voiced about these tests, that they hurt some individuals who could absolutely be excellent in college and graduate school, but just because of a test score that was earned on one day out of their entire life, they're shortchanged. They're put at a disadvantage. So I am happy that this conversation is taking place. I'm happy that it's happening more, and that we're focusing on aspects of candidates that do predict better success in college. So just to let you know, that's an ongoing discussion and may have contributed to that earlier slide that I showed you about the number of institutions that are now making these test scores optional. Okay, that said, per what I mentioned in our last webinar together and what I'll probably mention in future ones, if I were to ask you what you believe the biggest mistake is that prospective college students make, I wonder what you might say. Now, there are many mistakes that we can make as applicants. That's because we're human beings. But this, to me, is the biggest of all. This is the biggest mistake you can make, and it is not doing adequate research about program options before applying. Many applicants, in my humble opinion, make a mistake of relying on only two sources for their decision about where they will apply. Neither of these sources is bad. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're bad or that they shouldn't be utilized. I'm just saying there are many more things to be looking at than just these two. The two are word of mouth. Somebody else tells you, oh, this is a wonderful school, or this is a wonderful college or university. The second are rankings. Now, word of mouth and rankings are useful. Please, I absolutely would say that. But They are not the only tools that you want to use. Remember, as I say at the top of this slide, this is about finding the best match. I should have added for you. You're the one who's going to be going through this experience. Just you, not your parents, not your teachers, not your friends, you. This is about finding what is best for you and no one else. I strongly recommend that you start out with lots of options. Possibly create a spreadsheet where you list these options and then what it is you would like to compare. In my book, in the first chapter, are 26 aspects of a college or graduate school that you could compare to decide which ones are best for you. And I guarantee you, if you do this, if you create a spreadsheet, maybe you'll have 7 or 10 columns. Let's say you'd like to know what the class size is, what the campus looks like, something about the faculty, what type of financial aid is available for international students. Did you have experience to be in touch with the admissions office in some way? If so, what was your reaction? How did they treat you? What do current students say about this place? What do recent graduates say about this place? These are all things, and if you do this, if you take the time to, and you could put on there rankings if you want to put that as one of your columns, but you certainly shouldn't be relying only on this idea of a ranking. It's too limited. You need more information. And if you take the time to do this, I guarantee you, I've worked with over 650 undergraduate and graduate students who are applying over these past 15 years when I've had grad school roadmap. And actually, in the last year, several have been undergraduate applicants. And when they took the time to do their research, to create a spreadsheet, fill in all the blocks on the spreadsheet, when they took the time to do that, their list of options changed. Some of the schools they went into that research thinking would be the number one dropped way down, and other schools went way up. So you do a service to yourself if you are willing to take the time, and Astute is so helpful in this regard, and many others. Dr. Dioris and I share, and Ms. Deborah, we share this commitment to you making sure that you extend your search. When we do some shortlisting for candidates that Astute will send to us, we don't just send a list of 2 schools. Oftentimes, as Dr. Dioris will attest, that list is maybe 40 or 50 institutions of varying degrees, all of them good, by the way, all of them excellent, but a larger list. And then you can narrow that down and determine which of those options would be best for you. That's what I so strongly recommend, what we recommend to you. It will be worth your while in the end. When I was Dean of Admissions at the University of Chicago and also at Columbia, I also became Dean of Students at the same time. So I was responsible for bringing in the new class, but also staying with them as their Dean of Students while they went through the program. I held open office hours during that time. Every week, students could come in and speak with me at any point. They didn't have to make an appointment. It was just during a certain time of the day, they could come in and meet with me for 15 minutes. I was so saddened by how many students came to see me at the University of Chicago, mind you, at Columbia University. They would walk into my office and say, Dr. Don, I'm not happy here. I am so unhappy in this institution. And as I would talk with them, it became very evident to me that their decision to attend the University of Chicago or Columbia really hadn't been their own. It was heavily influenced by others or a ranking, or they had done no research. They really hadn't. And here they were. Most people don't get a bunch of different degrees in their life. They get one undergraduate degree and usually one or maybe two graduate degrees at the most. This is not something people do over and over and over again. So you want to try to get it right the first time. And how do you do that? By not making the mistake of just relying on one or two things, but expanding your search to many options, creating a spreadsheet, and really doing some homework. So remember, this is what you need to be doing if you are going to find that institution that is really a good match. And having attended both a college, or actually a college, I've been in a master's program and I've been in a doctoral program. My graduate degrees were incredible. My undergraduate experience was outstanding. And that is partly because I took the time to do some research. I didn't just think, oh, you're ranked number one, I'll go there. That's a little bit too short-sighted, in my opinion. So I think I've said enough about this. Let's move on now. And we're going to talk about some other, if I can get the slides to advance here. Hold on a minute. And I'm now going to move to the next part of our conversation, which has to do about how applying to the United States from another country is similar to what US students would experience if they were applying here. First of all, most applicants do apply to several schools, whether you're in the US, whether you're in India, whether you're in Brazil, whether you're in Australia. Most apply on average to about 8 or 9. That's not a standard rule, but most apply to that number. Secondly, most applicants tend to decide that they would like to apply earlier rather than later. And that to me makes good sense. If there are deadlines, obviously, if there's strict deadlines, you obviously need to get your application in. I always suggest an earlier deadline if you can. If there's something called rolling admissions, which means that you can send it in at any point, let's say between October 1st and February 1st, you still want to get it in October or November. And most applicants do this from wherever they are around the world. Thirdly, most folks do use the common application where it is accepted. And for most institutions in the US, this is a standard practice to use the common application. So international students also use this format. And lastly, every applicant, whether they are from another country or whether they're in the United States, they're submitting generally similar information. There's transcripts, there's letters of recommendation, there's essays, there's certain personal information that you're being asked to submit. This is somewhat similar, okay? Now we're going to switch to talk about how does the application process, if you are an international applicant applying to the United States, how is it different? Well, first of all, you may or may not, but you may be asked to take the TOEFL or the IELTS, which is a test to determine your English proficiency. Many institutions, even though they're lessening their requirements with ACT or SAT, they are still requiring this type of test of English as a foreign language. Second, it is possible that in some cases, you may be required to have your high school transcript evaluated by an outside organization. This may not be the case as much at the undergraduate level, but it does happen sometimes. It is certainly the case at the graduate level. There will be some possible requirement that you have a transcript evaluated. The purpose of that, by the way, is not to hurt you in any way, but rather to make sure that the credentials you've established academically throughout your high school or college career are going to be evaluated at an equivalency to the other applicants in the United States. There will be some sort of fairness here, and everyone will be looked at in an equitable manner. So this is not a negative at all. It's actually a positive to help you. Thirdly, typically for international students, there is less financial aid available. Typically, most financial aid awarded to international students would be scholarships or grants or a fellowship, or possibly having a chance to do some work on the campus where you are attending. Typically, federal loans that are available to US students, unfortunately, do not extend to those who are not citizens of the United States. So here again, this is possibly something, if you create a spreadsheet, to put on the spreadsheet. What am I looking at? What type of financial aid is available to me, if any, should I attend this institution? Next, applying for a student visa if you're admitted. Obviously, US students don't have to do this, international students do. And it's a time-involved process. Once again, a student is extremely capable and very much experts on how to go about doing all of this. But these things are different and also makes this the case for your being sure that you are doing your research, whether it's financial aid, whether it's about transcript evaluation, whether it's about TOEFL or IELTS. These could be sections on your spreadsheet too. Do I have to do these things? And what's available? And how long will it take me to earn my student visa once I get in? These are all things that would be very helpful for you to be aware of so that you've got these bases covered well before you submit your applications. All right, our time is moving along here. I've got a lot more to cover in the next 6 minutes or so before question and answer. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Let me talk about a few common mistakes of international college applicants. This happens every time. Again, please know, this is not, I'm not putting anyone down. I want to help you. And we all make mistakes, but I want to try to help you because getting noticed, being a competitive candidate means you've done your research. You know something about these programs. We're going to talk more about this in future webinars, especially when we get on to essays and how to really stand out in your essays. There's a way to do that. It makes a difference. But for now, let me give you a couple of the common mistakes. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes if you are so focused on more prestigious institutions, it could cause you not to be as open to some other programs that are just as excellent, but may not be, and might better meet your needs and your interests. But you have not focused on those because you're only thinking about these maybe top 5. Some students, and this happens in the United States, this is not just in India, or this happens all over the world. Some undergraduate applicants will only apply to the 7 Ivy League schools, and maybe they'll add Stanford or Cornell to that list, but that's it. That's the only group they will consider. And I would, again, caution you there. Just be careful. I'm not saying not to look at some of those top schools by any means, but you need to recognize what the chances of admission are, and do these schools really meet all of the criteria you put if you created your spreadsheet? Do they fit all of the things that you're looking for in your conversations with students, alumni, admissions staff, attending an admissions event, visiting the campus virtually if you can't do so in person? All of these things, do they add up? So don't be overly focused on the prestige factor if you can help. Here again, something Dr. 𝐂𝐡𝐞𝐫 mentioned earlier on in our session, preparing an outstanding application as a high school senior is the ability, or includes the ability, to compile a host of background information. Academics is one, but essays and extracurricular activities. And I should have added recommendation letters here. We're going to talk a lot about those. Do you know, during my 28 years as a Dean of Admissions, undergraduate and graduate, I'm not exaggerating now when I say this next point, 90 to 95% of the letters of recommendation I read were meaningless. They did not help me at all. If you have outstanding letters of recommendation, you're going to increase your chances of admission. Many students don't think this way. They think, oh, if I have a straight A and I take a test and I get the top 99th percentile, that's all I need. Oh, no, 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 no. That is not true. And that is why we look forward to hopefully working with many of the students that are in touch with Astute, starting at the 9th standard or the 10th. We can help at any point in the process, Ms. Deborah and I, but we certainly want to work with you to help you pay more equal attention to all of the aspects of your application that will help you stand out, not just maybe the one that you think is most important, because truly that's not the case in most instances. Number 3, sometimes applicants don't do as good a job of weaving together the components of their application, their personal information, their resume, their academics, their essays. They don't always help their recommenders to know. I'm not suggesting that you write your letters of recommendation. I know sometimes there's pressure to do that. From my standpoint, that's unethical. I don't think that if you're found out, you would be automatically denied. But you can work with your recommenders so that what you submit, when you push that submit button to the common application and then to the supplemental information you may be asked to submit to certain institutions, that what they're getting is a complete story about you that makes sense, that fits together, that presents a cogent, a unified approach to who you are. So that's another mistake. And lastly, not demonstrating authenticity. Truly, if there's nothing else you take away from my presentation today, I hope you'll take away at least 2 things. What's the biggest mistake you can make? Hope you're all answering with me. Not doing good research, okay? Second biggest mistake, not being yourself. I think that what happens is that sometimes applicants feel like somehow they're not good enough. So they have to try to become someone they're not. This is definitely not helpful to you in any way, shape, or form. You do not want to yield to this temptation. There's a philosopher by the name of Oscar Wilde who said something that I very much resonate with. This is a quote of his. He said, "Be yourself because everyone else is already taken." I think that's a phenomenal, phenomenal quote. Do not try to be someone you're not. If you're not the most funny person in the world, don't try to be. People can tell usually. Now, we're not psychologists, but usually you can tell when somebody isn't being themselves, isn't being who they were created to be. There's only one of you. You are special, you're unique, and let that specialness about you come through in this application, not trying to mirror somebody else or be someone else. Okay, lastly, some what I might say in closing, again, please, please, please do your research. Don't make this mistake. It's so easy to avoid if you'll take the time to do it. Secondly, make sure you remember your timelines and deadlines so that you are applying earlier, as I mentioned earlier, rather than later. Number 3, get your recommenders confirmed and, what's that word? Informed. Once you have confirmed the individuals who will recommend you, there's some work you can do to help educate and inform them. And we're going to talk about that again, along with all of these things in our future webinar series with you. And then open, if you get the Common App, once it's ready, start opening these things earlier than later. So you can, many of these applications contain personal information that you must fill in. So make sure that you open them early enough that you can fill your accounts in as early as you can. And lastly, spend some time on your resume and essays again. Don't wait till the last minute. Don't feel like, oh, I've got 2 weeks before I apply, I can do that. No, no, no. Some of the undergraduate students I happen to be working with at the moment, even though they won't be applying until November, they're already working on their personal statements. They've already finalized their resumes. This is very, very critical. So make sure that you, again, are knowing your timelines and deadlines so that you can walk back and make sure you have enough time to prepare all the components of your application. Oh, and try to enjoy the process. after all I shared with you, you're probably so nervous or you're thinking, oh dear, this is really a lot. Well, it is a lot, but if you plan ahead, if you take your time, if you're methodical, we can help with that. Should you decide to work with us with Astute and with Ms. Deborah and I, we can help you so that you will, this can be an enjoyable process to go through. You learn so much as you do it. So lastly, now, what about working with Dr. Deborah and myself? Well, one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, we've had a close association with Astute for over 10 years now. Our acceptance rate of the students that we have worked with Astute, I might let Dr. 𝐸𝐻𝐸 share more about that when he comes back on in a minute, but we've had a very successful collaboration with Astute and with the students that Dr. 𝐸𝐻𝐸 has referred to us, and it's quite a few now. It's quite a few students that we've had the pleasure of working with, and it's been a very successful experience. I should have put standard here rather than grade, but we are able to mentor and help you as early as the 9th standard. The sooner you get started with this process of making sure all of the components of your application are going to be strong and competitive, the better. And we can help you with that. And lastly, we can also assist and have done so with school research. We've done many short lists for countless numbers for Astute, resume prep, essay review, recommendation, much, much more. So we are available to help you in any way. We look forward. We would welcome the opportunity and privilege of working with you this year, wherever you are, 9th, 10th, 11th, you're getting ready to apply. We can help at any point. We'd be happy to do so. Okay, I went over a little bit of what I wanted to, but I see that we do have some questions here, I think. And again, thank you so much for joining me and Ms. Deborah today. We are so delighted that we were able to be with you. And I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. 𝐸𝐻𝐸, and we'll see if we have any questions that I can help with today.
Yeah, thank you very much. If you have any questions, please start typing in question and answer tab. And as Dr. Donald Martin said, it is very, very essential that you be a genuine student. What US is looking is not a profile for the sake of preparing the profile, but you should be genuinely believe, you should have the passionate about whatever career you want to make. No stream is good or bad. No degree is one degree or one stream is better than others. It is what you are and whether your skills, ability, and the personality matches with your long-term career goal. That is going to be very, very important. And that is why the mentoring program, what we designed, and Dr. Donald Martin and Deborah will be working very closely with the individual students from 9th standard to when we say creating a profile, definitely it is matching your skills and ability. We are not going to go out of the way. You don't play, you are not a good singer and I ask you to train you to how to sing. That is not the thing which is there. Okay, so I'll start taking the questions, but very important, research and genuinity. It is whatever you speak and write has to be 100% factually correct information. There is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad student. It is if you are a genuine student, even premier universities, everybody will appreciate.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So there was first question, how do the top accredited institutions look towards SAT score or marks scored in the school to offer a better scholarships to the students? What accreditation standard do you mean? Which accreditation standards? So about the accreditation standards, and does the ACT helps you to get a better scholarships?
That's a great question. And I would say yes. If an institution requires the submission of SAT or ACT scores, and you as an applicant have a very high score, then assuming that merit-based scholarship aid would be based on both your grades and your test scores, yes, a higher score will help. If you get admitted, it will help the academic section of your application to be admitted, and it will definitely influence your scholarship. Now, that said, due to the fact that many institutions are making, for those institutions that still require SAT or ACT, this is the case. It will weigh into an admission decision, and it will weigh into a scholarship decision. But if that requirement has now changed and the tests are optional, then it is less likely. It's possible it could weigh into an admission decision, perhaps, but it will not weigh into a financial aid decision, because there again, some students would have the scores and some wouldn't, and that would be an unfair way of distributing financial aid. So if the test is required, yes, it will make a difference both with the admission decision and with scholarship. Good question.
Yeah, and to add to this, always anything, any type of profile is a partial weightage. It is not a you score very high marks in SAT or you have the excellent grade, you can get a scholarship. Scholarship depends on many parameters. It is a holistic evaluation. And I always tell the students, whether you will be successful in that career, that onus of proving to the universities is very critical. And that is to be done to your essays part of it, which should reflect what is your career objective, what your current credentials. Unless you tell them who you are and why you are taking economics or engineering or any other subjects, it is going to be a very different scenario. So SAT and ACT is the analytical ability and comprehension skills, what they are talking about. It has got a certain weightage. Definitely, we, as a part of profile building, I always recommend every student, even though university says they are not going to evaluate based on the SAT or ACT, but definitely if you are, that is in your part of portfolio of various activities you are doing, it adds to a value to your complete profile.
If I may also jump in, that is excellent, Dr. Diors. Thank you for adding that. I also just want to emphasize again, most admissions committees are not making their decisions solely based on academics. I promise you, they are not.
Yes.
When I worked at Columbia, University of Chicago, Northwestern, you might be surprised at the number of applicants who had very high grades and test scores who were denied admission, because that's not all that was part of what we were looking for, but not all of it. So what Dr. Diors is telling about the comprehensiveness of your application, that it is outstanding in every way, and it is helpful and informative in every way, that's a great point. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's so how the mentoring program will be. What should recommendation letter cover?
Well, that's a great question. First and foremost, a recommendation letter should cover what is being asked by the people asking for this letter. What do they say they want to hear? Now, if there is no information provided about what they're looking for, then here is what I would say would be very helpful for a recommendation letter. First of all, the recommender needs to state the case for how long he or she has known you, so that it is evident that the best recommenders know you in two ways: long enough and well enough to make a good letter of recommendation for you. They have to know you, so they need to state the case. I've known this applicant for 4 years. I've known this at least a year, you would hope. They have known this applicant, and then they want to share with the admissions committee why they believe you would be an outstanding student at this particular institution. What are your strengths? What is it that will make you succeed in this community? And when they state those things, they don't just supply a list of your qualities. They need to provide examples of those qualities. How do they, if they say, let's say your name is AJ, and they say AJ is a phenomenal leader. He has an ability to just draw people It's a natural talent. Well, that's great, but how do they know that? Otherwise, it looks like they're just making things up or pulling them out of a hat. You must be able to provide examples, and then you must be able to show an area where this applicant needs to improve. One of the biggest mistakes applicants and recommenders make is believing that if they provide information on where an applicant needs to improve, it will hurt the applicant. It's just the opposite, folks. We're not looking for deep, dark secrets about you, but we are looking to know that you know yourself well enough, and they do, that here's something this person can. I'll give you an example. I am a very impatient person. I always have been. And it hasn't ruined my life, but it's something I've had to work on. And I have to really talk to myself sometimes and say, Don, come on, get with the program here. And so we all have things. We're not looking for the secrets of your life, but we are looking to know that you know enough about yourself, and your recommenders do, to know that you're a human being. So that's what I would suggest for a strong letter, if they don't give you any advanced ideas of what they're looking for.
I have two questions which has come from the school side.
Yes.
Where one of the counselor has asked the question, and she's saying, you say that the ranking system is not the only, rank is not the only thing to choose the university. But suppose I make a mistake into the choosing a wrong university, is it possible after I land in United States and realize my mistake, can I change the university?
That's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking. Yes, you can. There are students in the United States, both from the US and from outside the US, who do something called transfer. They will get somewhere and just this is much less likely at the graduate level. That's almost not ever done, but it's often done at the undergraduate level. Yes, at the end of your freshman year, or in some cases, students have transferred at the end of their sophomore year. Now, there's one part of this, and that is depending on the academic requirements of the institution to which you wish to transfer or to which you are accepted to transfer. It could be that it might take you a little longer to finish your undergraduate education there, depending on their requirements. That doesn't happen too often, but it does happen on occasion. So what you want to be sure to check out is, okay, if I do transfer, is there any additional length of time? But this happens quite often. It is not a blemish on your record by any means at all. Many students find that when they get somewhere, they've done the best to make a good decision, but when they got there, something, I'm working with a student right now who is transferring. This person happens to be from India, and they are transferring based on some things that happened in their first year at the institution they're currently attending. And so that does happen. And yes, you can do that.
Yeah. Another question which is coming into that, we have a lot of students who are coming and asking about what is major, what is minor, and how to choose the major and minor.
Great question. Your major is the subject area in which you will probably take the most courses during the final 2 years of your undergraduate experience. Most undergraduate programs require you to fulfill what they call some general education requirements in the beginning. You'll be taking some English classes, some history courses, some math, some science, perhaps a foreign language if you so choose. But you'll be required to take a bit of a general education curriculum in those first 1 or 2 years. Then, typically by the end of your second year, by the end of your sophomore year, you select the major, the field of study that you really want to pursue. Now, usually students choose that field based on some exposure and some knowledge that they have learned about, let's say, biology, psychology, engineering, law, medicine, business, and so forth. And one of the things that I often tell undergraduates is you do not have to know what your major is necessarily going to be when you first start. Now, many students do, and that's fine, but I will also suggest that many students I've worked with who said, this is what I'm going to major in, when they got there, they changed their major, and that's okay. You don't have to declare a major typically until the end of your sophomore year. So then during those final 2 years, you're taking a majority of courses related to that field of study. A minor would be another area of study that you're not taking as many courses in, but you also have an interest. Many students, for instance, might major in history, engineering, computer science, psychology, but they have an interest in art or music or a foreign language, and they might decide to major or minor in that area. They don't have to take as many courses, but they do have to take a few extra ones to complement their major. So you do not have to pursue a major, you do not have to pursue a minor in order to graduate. You do have to have a major, but you don't have to have a minor, but many students do. But again, I want to stress, those who go into college with a major in mind don't always stick with it. And those who go in not sure usually find a major by the time they get to the end of their second year.
Yeah, it's a great answer, because this is very much a lot of confusion amongst the students. And US education system, that is why it is very, very flexible education system.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so you landed there and you realize you have made a mistake. There are so many opportunities to correct that mistake. So
Yep.
that is really a great way to understand. So initially in a freshman year and all, you get exposed what is really your interest part of it, where your skills are there, and you can definitely make adjustments. So it's really a great. I'm not seeing any additional questions. If anybody has any questions, you can still type in the question answer tab. This is
Dr. Dioris, I would like, if I may, to again
Yes.
piggyback on something you just said. I really appreciated the word you used when you said flexibility. In my way of looking at this, as you go through your educational journey, if you do, let's say, an undergraduate degree, and then you were to do a master's degree, and then you were to do perhaps a doctoral degree, as you go along, fewer individuals pursue these degrees. The greatest number pursue undergraduate education, then a fairly large but less large number pursue master's education, and then a much smaller group pursue PhD education. The trajectory of your area of study becomes much more focused also as you go along. There is flexibility in college. You have the time to pursue some of these various fields of study, learn about them, and make some decisions as you take your general education courses. Then, when you get to the master's level, you choose one area and you focus on that in your master's: business, law, medicine, psychology, mechanical engineering, whatever it may be, computer science. Then, if you are going for a PhD, then within that field that you've chosen, you choose a particular area of that field on which you want to focus your PhD education. So you get to start out very generally and then move in a more focused way as you go along. I just wanted to share that, Dr. Dioris. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, really a great. So I'm not seeing any other question. So I think most of the things are covered already. And as we will be diving deep into each and every part of it in subsequent webinars, we will see the lot of questions which will be coming. But this is what is just to be different than other students, what steps we need to do. We need to understand at first at a high level and then go into the minor level. So really, thank you, Dr. Donald Martin, for taking such a wonderful discussion. And Deborah, both you are really welcome. So in future, so we will be having the continuous, all the schedule has been sent to all the students. But again, we will send a complete schedule of all the webinars so you can spread that amongst the other students, and you can join any moment of time. So
Wonderful.
thank you very
Wonderful.
much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes,
Diores.
yes. So I'm
Thank you.
closing down the
Bye-bye.
session. Bye. Bye.
Bye
Bye-bye.
now.